don't you bring your ass back here. Children, if I felt that they were capable of being saved, I tried my darndest to save them. And I figured that somebody else had probably babied them way too long, and now it was time for somebody to get real. And so I would just tell you how I felt about it, and I would always leave with that I think you're capable of doing so much better. And if you hear that you're capable of doing better, if you hear it long enough, you start thinking, yeah, I can. And it worked. It worked with so many kids.
So with that, at what year did you become a judge in Wichita Falls?
December '83. I started out in college. I dropped out of college.
Wow.
And I came home, and back in the day, if you didn't have a college degree, you just kind of had to get whatever kind of job was available for you, because they didn't have all those intermediary jobs and all. So I got a job working in private home, cleaning somebody else's toilet, somebody else's house, taking care of their children. And I worked, and I got pregnant in the fall of '55, had a baby in '56, in September '56. But all during that time, I was still working in private home. My mother had this philosophy: if you don't work, you're gonna steal. If you steal, you're going to jail. And you ain't nobody in my house going to jail, because if you do, you're gonna have to stay in there. I ain't getting out. So we worked at whatever job was available. So in the spring of '58, I had been working for a doctor, a radiologist, Dr. Frank Brown, and keeping his kids when they traveled. I was the one that took care of their children. I had a child, but I still took care of their children, because that's what black women did in this town.
That was here in Wichita Falls at the time? Okay. And
so something happened, and I chastised his children. And when they got back, the kids told them, and they asked what happened, and I told them. And the kids said, that's not the way it was. So I said, whoa, Nellie. If I'm going to be responsible for your children, totally, then I have to have the last word. And since I can't take care of them. So I got 2 weeks, and I'll be out of here. So y'all find somebody else to take care of your children, and I'm gone. And I came home, and I told Mother, I said, I just quit the job. She said, girl, what you gonna do? And I said, I don't know, but in 2 weeks I'm gonna have a job. So Miss Zula Mae Amos, who had the beauty shop on Park Street, said, ooh, baby, what you gonna do? And I said, I don't know, Aunt May, but I got to have a job, because I don't have the 2 weeks to do it. So she said, our little lawyer, Charlie Ola. I said, do you know her? And I said, I know who she is. She said, she's ready to get a secretary. Charlie had gotten past the bar at '53, but she had done her own legal stuff, her secretary stuff. So she was just about ready to hire a secretary. So I went and I set up an appointment with her and interviewed with her. And she said, can you type? Yeah. So she hired me. She didn't ask me how much I could type or how long I had to.
How many words you typing in there?
I had 6 weeks of typing. But I held that job for 13 years.
Oh, wow.
And got to be one of the best secretaries in town. So while I was working for her, something happened, and Judge Arthur Tips met me, and he asked a question one time, and I gave him my honest answer. So he said, that's not what everybody else is telling me. And I said, I don't care what everybody else told you. You asked, and I'm answering you. And that's the way it is. So he said, okay, we'll see. And I said, yeah, we'll see. Now, you're going to tell me when you find out that I'm right, aren't you? He said, yeah. So later on he came back and he said, you know, you were the only one who told me the truth. I said, oh, really now? So we kind of got to be friendly. So he said, one of these days, if this town ever is at a point where black people can work in places like mine, I'm gonna hire you. And I said, yeah, sure you are.
And what year was this?
This was in the late 50s, early 60s. So one day he called me and he said, you know, it's time for the courthouse to integrate. You remember I told you I was going to hire you? He said, I'm going to talk to Charlie, but I'm ready to offer you a job working at the courthouse. I said, Judge, you have to get reelected, and they ain't going to reelect you if you hire me. He said, yeah. He said, you're probably right, but you got to take a stand. And I got to take one now.
And that judge's name was again?
Arthur Tips.
Arthur Tips. Okay.
So he said there was an opening for something, so he convinced them to let me work over there part-time. And then he said, just hang on, we're going to do this. So in the spring of 1970, he said, I want you to come work for me in 2 weeks. So I told him it was fine with me, and I said we just had to figure out how to keep Charlie from being too strained, you know, from not having a secretary. So I said, whenever she needs help, I need to help her. And also, he said, you're going to have to learn to do, remember I told you what my skills were. He said, do you do shorthand? And I said, no, but I can learn. He said, you're going to have to learn. He said, because you're going to have to know shorthand. So I said, okay. So he hired me, and I went to work for him May the 1st, 1970, and stayed there till January the 1st, 1995.
Oh, wow.
And I worked for him until he retired. And then I went to work at county court. Now, you remember I told you I worked in private home?
Yes.
One of the private homes was for a lawyer named Henry Anderson.
Okay.
Henry Anderson had a son who went to law school. His son got to be a judge. And I had taken care of him when he was a little boy. And he called and he said, I got a job you wanted. And I said, yeah. So I said, now, Hank, you know I took care of you when you were a little boy, so I'm still not going to put any nonsense out of you. So if I go to work for you, I'm still orthopedic. So he said, deal's a deal. So I went to work for him. He was just a judge for a couple of years because he took an appointment, but he didn't want to be a judge. Judges didn't make enough money for him. So then the new judge took his place, said, I'll run for office if you'll stay. And I said, yeah, I'll stay here. I don't want to go anywhere else. So I went to work for the judge who succeeded Hank Anderson. And then when the judge who was the JP judge had to retire suddenly, they caught him with the gun in his mouth, and they figured that was a good time for him to go to a mental hospital, and then he figured that was a good time for him to retire. So when that job came up, the lawyers said, why don't you apply for that job, Dr. B? And I said, I'll apply for it if y'all will give me references. So 35 members of the bar gave me references.
Wow.
And they hired me out of the 32 people who applied for the Wichita County JP's job. And I was the first JP.
Which is Justice of the Peace? Okay.
Probably, first black woman probably in the state. There's a possibility that there was another one appointed long about the same time. And it's a matter of who got their appointment first. The newspaper thinks that I was the first one appointed because that's what they did. They wrote a story in the newspaper that I was the first black woman JP in the state. If I wasn't, we both were appointed about the same time because I'm
I'm a little ignorant to how the process works. So a justice of the peace is a judge, correct?
Yes.
And they are voted in.
They're voted in.
So they don't have to go to law school or have a degree in law?
JPs don't.
Okay.
JPs, and you might not have known this, the county judge doesn't either. They're set by the Constitution. The state constitution requires 2 judges county judge, JP. And all they require is that they be of good conduct and an adult. But the Constitution says it. So modern day JPs, probably 50% are lawyers, but they don't have to be. And it's probably the same way with county judges too. They don't have to be. Wichita County has been fortunate that all of our county judges have been lawyers, but not all of our JPs. As a matter of fact, we still don't have a lawyer JP in Wichita County. Some judges, some places do. Houston, for instance, has had lawyer JPs for years, but they're not required by the Constitution, and most people just, you know, are people who fit the constitutional requirements, and that's it. Wow. The way the law was set up, if the term you get appointed to is for more than 2 years, you have to run for re-election to the balance of that term. So my appointment was for 2 years and 2 weeks. So I had to run. So I got appointed in December of '83 and filed for election in January of '84 and ran in '84. And you run in primaries because you run against a whole bunch of people because it's party politics. So I ran as a Democrat and won against 3 people in the primary. And then somebody was running on the Republican ticket in November of '84. I beat the Republican candidate for JP, who was an attorney, who had been a retired judge advocate general out of Shepherd, and I beat him like he stole something. I got like 80% of the votes. And then because that was to finish out that term, and then I ran again in '86 and again in '90. And then because I don't believe that I believe in time things, and I just term limits, and 12 years almost, it would have been over 12 years if I had run that last time. I also don't like to have the system keep appointing judges, because that's when they start playing with their buddies and a friend's child, you know, and that kind of stuff. So when I decided that I wasn't going to run anymore, I announced a year before I planned to retire that I'm retiring, and whoever wants to run for this can run, and that left it open to legitimate candidates for the JP job. Because, I was thankful that I got appointed. I certainly didn't expect it, because I wasn't anybody's anybody. But that's how it was, and you serve until, once there's an election, till that person is sworn in. The election is in November, and all of the people who get elected take their oath of office January the 1st at noon, January the 1st. So that's why I said till January the 1st of '95 I was JP, because my replacement was not sworn in until till noon on January the 1st.
Oh, okay.
And that's when I stopped being one. The newspaper thinks that I was the first, and hopefully they documented it correctly. Now, I was the first black woman court bailiff in the state of Texas, and
Wow.
I became a court bailiff in 1970 because the job I held required that you also be a court bailiff, and so I was the court bailiff. And of course,
Wow.
It made a lot of news because, they thought that that was exciting. I weighed 112 pounds, soaking wet, and here I was going to keep order in the courtroom, and I kept order in the courtroom too. I tell you, I did some pretty crazy things to a whole bunch of crazy white folk back when I was there. One that was especially interesting. Woman called me and she said on the phone, to jury duty, and I said, why? Because on the phone, if I don't want to be black, I don't have to be black.
Right.
So she said, I'm gonna level with you. And she said, you know, niggers live in my neighborhood. And I said, honey, I know what you mean. They live in mine too. So I said, when you come into court, I want you to look for me. Because I'm going to take you and let you talk to the judge special. And I'm sure if you tell him what you just told me, he's going to excuse you. I said, now you're not going to miss me because I'm going to be the one sitting up there at the bench calling the names. She showed up, she never said a word.
Right. Awesome.
And I even asked the judge, I said, why? I said, when you hired me, you knew you were taking a real risk. And he said, nah, I wasn't taking a risk because I knew you could do the job. What I wanted to make sure was that I didn't have somebody that every time somebody did something, they ran to me crying, and I knew you could hold your own with anybody. And he said, so I just figured that if I hired you and let you know what you could do and what you couldn't do, you'd take care of the rest of it. Because they come in the little office that I had was so small, but it was the one that the girl had before me, that they put a mirror in front of the typewriter because your back was to the door, so that you wouldn't feel claustrophobic. So we would sit in there, and they would come in behind, and they'd walk into my office, and they'd say, nigger done taking a white woman's job. And I said, talk to her. She can hear. Talking about myself. And that because I knew that they would not say another word to me. Yeah, just talk to her. I could have turned around and said, so what do you want to do about it? But I just say, talk to her. She can hear. There would be some who, if they wanted something and I didn't do like a lackey and run it, give it to them, well, I'm just going to have to talk to the judge about this. I'm not going to put up with the judge. When the judge comes back, me and you going to go in there and we're going to straighten this out. And I said, no, when the judge gets back, I'll set up an appointment for you and you can go talk to him. If you're going to get my job, you don't need my help. So I'll let you talk to the judge. And if you can convince him to fire me, fine. And a judge would come in, I'd set up the appointment, they'd go talk to him, and you could hear him saying, you need to leave her alone. She doesn't work for you. She, you know, and all. That's why he hired me, because he knew I could roll with the punches. And they never gonna say I cursed one of them. They never gonna say I hit one of them. But all of them had, I knew my stuff. Like some of the retired colonels from Shepherd would come into the Wichita Falls and start practicing law. And they'd been so used to ordering people around, you know, and all, that when the judge wasn't there, I went into his courtroom and called his docket. Now, that probably wasn't supposed to be done, but that's what he wanted me to do. And I called it back, and you could hear the other lawyers, the retired colonels would say, I'm not going to give her my answer. I'm not going to do this. And they say, if you want your case heard, you better give it to her. And so, you know, word got around it. Even all the way to Fort Worth, they just weren't ready for him to have given me so much authority. When I went to work for him, there had never been a woman in this state required to pay child support if she lost the custody of her child. And one day it happened in our courtroom, and he gave the custody to the child because she really needed to lose her children. But he didn't order in support. So I said, and he could look at my face and he could tell. So when we went in the back room, he said, "What did I do? You are upset about something." And I said, "Why didn't you order child support?" And he said, "Well, women make more money than men and all." And I said, "But what's that got to do with her children?" He said, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "Child support doesn't have anything to do with punishing anybody. It has to do with each parent assuming responsibility for their children. And I grant you that he makes more money than she does, but couldn't he have put her support payments into a fund for those children for when they go to college?" He said, "Never thought about that. I'll give that some thought." The very next time it came up, and he ordered a man to have the custody, he ordered the woman to pay child support, and used my explanation as the reason for it. That it's the right thing to do. If ever there was a job available, if I thought I was qualified to do it, I applied for it. My theory was they can't hire you if you don't apply. So you apply. They don't have to hire you, but they sure don't have to hire you if you don't apply. So I would apply for it. So every time I applied for a job before then, I got a raise. So I really thought I was going to get a raise.
At your current job?
Yeah, I thought the judge would be so scared that he was going to lose me. He'd just give me, because that's what he'd done before. Every time a job came up, if I didn't get hired within that building, he would put me in for an immediate raise. So I just assumed, I had gotten a raise for schedule for that January coming up, of January of '84. So I applied for that job when it came available in December of '83, knowing full well that I was going to get a raise anyway, but he would ooch it up some more, make me happy. So I applied for it, and when they were making the announcement in Commissioner's Court that the appointment of the JP will be, and I'm looking around and all, and he says Arthur B. Williams, and I'm looking around to see where Arthur B. Williams. Oh, blank. I don't believe it. And you know what, the blank started with an S. But no, I always have felt that whenever something came up, if I was eligible to do, I would. That's why I told the doctor, I can't take care of your children if I can't be the sole authority in this household like you are. I should be in the same position that you're in when you're not here. And we got to be friends. After I quit working for him, he knew I was right. And later on, he found out where I was working. He'd stop by to check on me. Lynn was still a little girl. I would take her to the doctor. He never charged me because she had upper respiratory problems. He was radiologist. He never ever charged me anything because he knew I was absolutely correct. And I believe if he had had a different wife, it probably would have been different. But then my story would have been different too. But I always felt whenever I was qualified for something I would do. I can remember when I was a kid in school, if there were grades, and I remember there was a teacher named Teresa Harrison. You might remember her. She taught PE. And a lot, and I don't know what happened to her. She just got crazy and graded us really crazy. And I went to talk to her, and I said, "Miss Harrison, it's my understanding that these were the requirements in PE, this and this and this and this and this. And as far as I know about what I have done, I've done this and this and this and this and this, and my grade should be such and such. Why?" And she said, "You're absolutely correct. That's exactly what I don't know who I was thinking about, because that's not the grade that you would have gotten. Because mine was not you gave me, I earned. And mine was I earned, and yet the greater. And so that's what I've always done for me. I even told my daughter, that's what you have to do for yourself. You have to know what's required of you, and then when you do it, then you can stand up and demand your rights. But you can't demand your rights if you haven't done what you're supposed to do. So, but I worked really hard for Charlie. My deficit in typing, I quickly made up for it, because when you type on a regular basis, you become a good typist. I developed my own version of shorthand, so when I worked for her, I could do our stuff. When I went to work for the judge, he told me that I was gonna have to learn shorthand, and I took shorthand with 18-year-olds just out of high school, and learned shorthand to satisfy his requirements for shorthand, because what I did in his court was to act with the court reporter, and when we were in trial, and you've seen them where they were working on the charge, you see it on TV and all. Well, they give her instructions that they want in their jury charge, and they'd give me, so everybody had to have shorthand in order to do it. So I learned shorthand. That's what he said do. I learned shorthand. But then I also learned everything else. Make yourself indispensable. If you have to get rid of somebody, it ain't gonna be her, because she's the one that's too valuable, So I just made myself indispensable, and it worked. That's why Hank, when the young kid whose family I had worked for, he didn't hire me because I was the cutest thing in the block. He hired me because I was one of the best secretaries that he could get. And it worked out well, because I did all the mental health commitments for the state hospital district. State hospital district back when I worked was 52 counties, and all of the mental health commitments to state hospitals, I did. It became my job. I used to do it all, and then finally I told them that the job really was too much for one person, and that they needed to hire a secretary, because I audited the books for the probate court, which is something that the county judge does. Probate's where they probate the wills and stuff like that. Where they do the guardianships. They do the truancy, the juvenile court stuff, because the county judge is also the juvenile judge. And you do it, but you kill yourself doing it. So I just suggested that they might want to hire somebody. So he told me, nah, that job didn't require, you can do it all. So yeah, it's just too much. And I'm going to take vacation next week. And I'll be gone for 2 weeks. And when I get back, he says, that job requires 3 people. He said, I got folk from the clerk's office, I got folk from here, I got folk from here to try to do all that stuff. How do you do all that job? And I said, nah, that job don't require no 3 people. So he said, we can't hire 3 people, but we can get another one. You take the job that you want, and then she can do the rest of it. So I said, I just want to do the mental health. And I did. I started doing only the mental health commitments. And then somebody else did the books for the stuff. You just had to make sure that everything was done. When I went to county court, because other girls had applied for that job, because integration is a hard thing. White folk don't want to give up nothing. So I wasn't who they wanted to have that job. So I'd go to the clerk's office, the county clerk's office, where they do the marriage license and the so forth and so on, the deeds and all that kind of stuff. And if they could get away with it, they would. And I'd been working in the courthouse then for 7 years, but I worked upstairs, and I think they were mad because I got the job anyway. So if they didn't have to get up to come to the counter to wait on me, they wouldn't. So I just went to the auditor's office, asked for as many yellow pads as I could get and as many red felt tip markers that I could get. And I'd go in there and I'd give them a few minutes to come to the counter to wait on me. And if they didn't, I'd write instructions bigger than Dallas on a yellow pad with red, clip it to the top of my stuff and walk out and leave it. Then next thing you know, they in there complaining to my boss that she switches in there and she writes these instructions in red on this yellow sheet of paper and she leaves it in there for us. And he said, I know, because she told me she did. She said, y'all weren't, he said, because y'all weren't waiting on her. And if you stop sitting there trying to decide you're not going to wait on her, she'll stop writing your notes in red. And she'll stop putting it on yellow paper because you can see it across the room, you know. But it's one of those things. I mean, I could have done a whole bunch of things to raise Cain, but it's so infuriating to them that the word gets out that that's the only reason that they're there is because they're not waiting on Martha B. And so then they kind of want to make it all go away. And you know, I can remember when I first went to work over there, they had a little cabal going that they weren't going to talk to me. Oh Lord, that was like throwing Brer Rabbit in the briar patch. I didn't like to speak anyway. So to have these folks who just walk past me and not speak, oh, that was like heaven for me. I just needed the job, you know. So I didn't complain about it, and I didn't do anything. And then next thing you know, they're complaining that I'm not talking to them. And I said, well, the Supreme Court said y'all had to let me work with y'all, but it didn't say I had to talk to y'all. So, you know, after that, when they discovered that they couldn't hurt me, then they wanted me to, quote, be nice to them. And then finally they decided that there was nothing on earth they're going to be able to do to hurt me. And then they left me alone and started trying to get along with me. But, you know, I got a lot of black girl in me. You know.
I only have...
So I'll pay you back.
I only have 2 more questions. The first one is how, if any, has the racial climate in Wichita Falls changed from the time of, we'll just start with the 70s till now?
Oh, we can even go back. We can go back to the 40s. The only difference is that people are more subtle in their racism now. They're more subtle. And now that we've got our new president, they don't even feel that they have to be subtle about it anymore.
They don't have to be close.
But the difference is in pre-integration and post-integration has more to do with the subtleties. Part of what goes on, I think we bring it on ourselves. I don't assume that anybody's going to like me based on an integrated thing. You don't even have to like me. I don't even have to like you. If I have to work with you, I can work with you. I just won't invite you to my parties. You know, it's kind of that stuff. Yeah. Black people sometimes want folk to like them. Do you just want the job or what? You know,